3 men and a baby. Squirrels are chirping. The squirrels are chirping. The chipmunks. I wasn't gonna do anymore. I was gonna call it macaroni, but
following the first hour of On Point here on VTR. Powered by Fairbanks.
there's an old Anthrax song. Always room for one more chance to believe in. That you can settle the score. One more place at the table. There's always room for one more. Room for one more. Digga-digga-da, digga-digga-da. Digga-digga-da, digga-da. Stephen R. Covey, no wait, not Stephen R. Covey, Peter Senge wrote a book way back, The Fifth Discipline, and he talked about the difference between emotional and creative tension, and how that there's a difference between emotional and creative tension, but sometimes there's not. Sometimes that emotional and creative tension are the same thing. So I've been living through the arc of whatever this story is that I needed to do and needed to say. And I'm feeling better. I can feel that I'm almost done with this story. Thought maybe I was last night, but now I'm thinking maybe not. So, I'm gonna leave New Hampshire and cross over into Vermont and tell the rest of this story. I hope it works. So I said they've been around the world. So why now? And why am I saying this stuff? And And why am I being allowed? Why am I being allowed to say this stuff? Well, it still remains to be seen if anybody will ever watch it besides me, which is fine. It's doing something for me, even though I'm constipated, in really bad shape all the way around, physically, but I also am feeling good taking this risk of showing my ugliness, and at least to myself, showing myself the truth beneath the ugliness, even if everything I said is wrong. It's a story, it's a fable, it's a fairy tale, it's a fiction, it's a made thing. It's hard to tell the truth and be true if 30 people were at an important event and wrote a book about it, they'd be different. So sometimes the fables and the stories and frankly the lies have more truth in them than the supposed truth. Except for when you come down to math and geometry. But even then, actually, there's a lot of proofs that are accepted that are incorrect. Or they're incomplete, or they don't have a language big enough to speak to the truth. With all these Russian dolls stacked inside each other. So they've been around the world. And they carried Queen Anne's lace with them. Same with dandelions. A lot of people are picking dandelions right now, trying to rid their lawns of dandelions, which were brought here as a food. At this time of year, and I don't necessarily feel like doing it, but say there was a million-man march somewhere right now, there'd be pretty much, enough wild food along the way, if you know what it is, right at the roadside, to pick it and eat it and go. You wouldn't have to pack a lunch. They planted the lunch for you everywhere. Wild carrot didn't used to be everywhere. Now it grows along every roadside. At every crux of every interstate. There it is. In the fall, it's just this plume of white flowers everywhere. I think this will be my last post on this story of Tom, John, Judas, and Agnes, of Dorothy, the Cowardly Lion, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man. For now. I picked that small purple flowered piece of ground ivy, which is a mint. Definitely look up online about what's what before you get it. But it's a type of mint, but it tastes nothing like mint. It tastes a little like cat pee. It has a really funky flavor you gotta get used to. But it's good for you. And I haven't done that stuff because I had to make this story. Whether it's for myself, whether it's for other people, whatever it's for. why ever it is that I'm doing this, I have had to do it. But I also have to take care of myself, and I haven't done that, and I want to. I want to desperately. I'm in my car now. So, back when the internet first started, or when like videos first started, when they were really crappy, like now there's all kinds of math videos on the internet, but there wasn't at the time. This was before Khan Academy. This is before just the plethora, the multitudes of math videos. You know, before the gazillion Riemann hypothesis videos, before all that. One of the only videos about math that was publicly accessible on the internet was some fellow, and it was something like the most important video you've never seen, or something like that was the name of the video, I think. And it was I can't remember the math professor, but he talked about the importance of compounding interest, right? And everybody, I guess, knows that now, and that has to do with E. I don't study E very much because I've yet to discover the geometry that describes E, or I might have discovered it and I've misplaced it, because there is the Euler line, and that I've identified in geometry, and that might be connected with E. It looks like it might be, but anyway, the power of interest, and we all think about that as far as like the power of doubling, how if you have one single penny and double it every day for a month, by the end of the month you'll have like a gazillion dollars or whatever. And people know about the power of compounding interest when we're talking about your 401k and money. Which comes into the whole idea of a fiat currency, or fiat lux, let there be light. But interest is also what we're interested in. And so like there's all kinds of shit I don't know. I'm very superficial. I pluck along the surface, you know. My brain is like a lily pond, you know, and my thoughts are just all these little lilies on the pond, you know. They don't reach very high up into the sky. They do reach down into the bottom, but I don't. I'm just the green surface of the lily pad, and I have all these ideas I'm trying to bring together, but that's interest. And so the story form of interest and compounding interest is when we follow our interest, when we learn to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, when we learn, you know, or that's our interest, and if we learn how to draw a little picture, and if we learn one thing about one little wild flower, and we learn how to draw one geometric picture, and we learn how to be a good friend. It's all related, and all of that interest compounds. It all builds on each other. So they say, like, jack of all trades, master of none. I'm a kind of a jack of one trade, master of none. I mean, I don't know very much about a heck of a lot, but I can paint houses okay. yeah, back to the money thing, which I'm always worried about. I got $6 in my wallet. I have a little money in the bank. But like, that reminds me too, like talking about the Wizard of Oz, like there's some really great stuff out there by Bill Still about how the Wizard of Oz has to do with the money system. And that's worth watching. But it's not necessarily a bad thing that like all this fake money is being printed, and that it was, you know, in the Nixon era it was torn away from gold, and now it's being torn away from the petrodollar, because it went from the gold dollar to the petrodollar, and now there might only be a handful of people who even knows what that common transaction, that fair trade between us actually is. And I'm led to believe that's what's happening is we're being transferred to where money actually represents what's valuable, which is us. We're valuable. It's good that money is being devalued, because the real money is now being valued. Money, mon, one, EY, EYEI, one eye, one principle, one-eyed Willie. Like I said, I haven't watched The Wiz, but that does have a lot to do with a dark-skinned woman, a brown woman, a black woman in a yellow dress. One of those symbolisms is Black-Eyed Susan. And you'll see throughout movies and paintings, you know, darker women in a yellow dress. One reason is because, you know, people with brown skin look really good in yellow. Just like people with blue eyes look good in a blue shirt. It's just a natural aesthetic. Well, the symbol of that is brown-eyed Susan, black-eyed Susan, which is a beautiful flower, but it's also one-eyed Willie. It's also Queen Anne's lace. It's also your Ivy single. It's also the square root of -1. Whereas the Dorothy symbolism is different. They represent the same thing, which is the bigger story. But also, it relates to the strife of the black woman. You know, and that comes into the whole idea with money too. Abe Lincoln, he's on the penny, and he's on the $5 bill, a reference to 1 and 5, which is a reference to 5. And then there's Thomas Jefferson, who's on the nickel, and who's on the $10 bill. The backwards reference to 1 and 5, to 5. You have George Washington and the Washington Monument. He's like Moses. George Washington is the Moses of America. Abraham Lincoln is the John the Baptist of America, so to speak. And there's that great pool between their monuments. And then there's the Jefferson Monument, which isn't talked about as much, shaped like a dome, like a wild carrot, kinda. What we need to do is build a monument to Harriet Tubman right in the middle of that pool, facing the Jefferson Monument. We're going to put Harriet Tubman. She's Mary. She's Jesus. She's Tough Tom. She's Judas. She's John. Tough enough to do the job. She is that symbol. Everything. And she's going to be looking back to Jefferson. Why? How deep is the Underground Railroad? How far back in time does that railroad go? Thousands of years. People talk about Jefferson and how he had an affair with his wife's half-sister and how they had a dark room. A hidden room in the basement where he would visit her. Now my question for you is, what if that was his real wife? What if some of those slaves weren't slaves? What if some of those slaves were running the show? How far underground is the Underground Railroad? And why now? Maybe now it's being allowed to come to the surface. Because the power of love is a curious thing. Do. Make one man weep, make another man sing. Da-da-da. Change a hawk to a little white dove. More than a feeling, that's the power of love. Like I said, like the whole crux of the problems of the world, at least as the West is concerned, is this tension between black and white in America. Now, this is just my opinion. But that's why, well, I'll get to that. It might be time anyway, yeah, now's not the time for that, but whew. Just drove over pieces of a dead animal. Like, there's so many ways we could improve the world if we could just like come together and be ourselves. Like, imagine building a bloodless highway. Like, that would be such a great feat of engineering. If we could build a bloodless highway, it would be better for us, better for them. Talk about all the ways to get off the planet, all the ways to go here and go there, but there's so much we could do to make here better. And there's so much building we could do, and people are like, oh, we already overbuild, we already do this, we already do that. But people have too much, you know? People talk about square footage and this and that. It's like this fight that we've had for horizontal planes, for flat spaces, for first, second, third stories, for desks and shelves, you know? But now we see, like, with this great innovation of like tiny homes and all this, like how much you can pack into a small space, how effective and how efficient you can be. Like, what's his name? Was it David Allen? Getting things done. More efficient ways of the getting things done movement. And that speaks to a lot of techies, and like you see a lot of like really pumped up people doing all this stuff and high tech this and that or whatever, people using his system. But if you look at his own home office, it's very simple, it's very sparse, it's not fancy, and he's super duper effective. Say there's too many people, but there could be way more people if we just lived more efficiently. Like, one of the good things about what's happening right now with the coronavirus is a lot of our jobs that we have is just the hamster wheel. It's like whoever they are have been trying to fix this hamster wheel that's been rolling. Now it's finally possible. Like, there's so many jobs that have existed just so that people can make money. Part of the reason behind the scenes of controlled obsolescence, engineered obsolescence, is because if things were made that lasted, that didn't break, then the people who made things wouldn't have a job and wouldn't have money to go out and buy things so that other people could have a job, so that they could have money to go out and buy things. It's like probably 80% of our entire economy, at least actually, is just completely useless, and is just it's like a steam engine that's been built inside a hybrid car. You know, it's like, but the car can't stop, it had to keep going. Well, now the car's being stopped, and it's tough, and I know there's a lot of really hard times that people are going through right now, but they're doing their best. All things considered, the butterfly effect. All things considered, because people say like, oh, why does God allow this to happen? God's allowing this to happen so that we don't have a nuclear war and destroy the whole fucking planet. This is less worse, and now we have the chance to come together and make it even less worse, and by God, maybe even good someday, maybe in 100 years or 200 years, or maybe in 10 years or 5 years, maybe it could be good. Maybe we still will go to war with North Korea. I hope not. But we don't have to. Like, what if, like, a lot of North Koreans know English? A lot of people who speak English don't know other languages, but people all around the world know English. Like, what if we, you know, World War III, World War IV, what if it's a war of peace? What if we reach out and have pen pals? You know, it's always governments talking to governments, and that's the way people used to do things, because that's the way it had to be done, because not everybody everywhere could talk to everybody everywhere. You know, what if the war we have with North Korea is a pen pal war? What if the war we have with China is a pen pal war, a war of peace? What if we created like a website and called it the Pen Pal War of Peace, World War IV, the War of Peace, the Pen Pal Project? What if we did that, and on our own connected with other people and realized how much we had in common? Do you realize what that could do as a movement to relax the tension on our governments? The governments are the manifestations of us and who we are and what we are. And there's a lot that we can do as individuals. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. How can we just do the simplest things? They've built this entire infrastructure. And part of it has been a life support system for a dying world. And people say, save the planet, save the earth, you know, save the animals, save ourselves, save each other. And the simple things, be honest, just talk to each other, allow each other to be curious, and yes, racist. And I don't mean it in the bad way, I mean we come from a perspective, we don't understand other people and other peoples, other men, other women, other hermaphrodites. We don't understand each other. Allow that curiosity. If I accidentally call you Oriental instead of Asian, let it slide. If I call it Chinese pie, let it slide, because there's truth even there. We need to be strong enough to wash our hands of these petty differences and see the light that is in each one of us. All desperately want it so bad. And that's the true technology of the internet. Like I said before, people talk about implants and 5G and this and that and GPS tracking, but I made the reference to the people who have a language that they speak to each other that creates a GPS in your brain. That's the power of the internet, so that dumb, smelly old house painters like me can know that and say, hey, I'm gonna go learn that language. And then I'm gonna have that built into my mind. That's the true, GPS. That's the true, things coming together. Not as a Tower of Babel, but as a sphere. A very strong sphere, like the Epcot Center. The Epcot Center is the new pyramid, where the power structure's in the middle, and the power structure is at every single point along the surface of that sphere. As we come together, instead of two closed hands praying, two hands holding a softball wrapped around a softball. That's the new pyramid. That's the new symbol. That's the new structure that is being allowed to be born now. Because this also opens up the psychic connection between us. I'm making this video for I don't know who, except for that I know I'm making it for me. But whatever that is that has been pulling me and pushing me to do this project, to build what I'm trying to build, whatever that is something in the future. Because now someone in Australia 350 years from now could watch this video. I don't know. That could be it. And if not me, others like the 100th monkey. Why now? They planted all of this permaculture food around the world, all this medicine around the world, all these wildflowers that we use Roundup to kill. They've put the knowledge out there in stories and tales and fables and science and math. It's being allowed to happen now because they finally planted the underground, the roots, the permaculture technology, so that the medicine we need to heal ourselves physically is everywhere and available to all of us. they had to protect these things in the past because it wasn't everywhere. Now it is around the world. The structure, the network, the internet that's wrapped around the world is the Underground Railroad, is the healing power of the roots of the simple plants that grow underground, and the mycelial network. The mycelial network that connects these roots, that stretches through the universe, just like dark matter, dark energy. The physical component of the ether, at least symbolically in respect of the hidden structures, organizing principles behind what we see. There's going to be things that we see now that won't be anymore. There's going to be things we don't see that will be. Things are changing. And it might not be us. That becomes, the next great species, but it might be. I think a lot about squirrels. Look what they can do with their hands. They can jump from tree to tree, power line to power line. What if they're the next step in evolution? Or what if it's some type of animal that we have no conception for? But if we don't learn to love these animals and each other, then whenever what's coming comes, there's not going to be any room for us. But we have a chance now. We have a chance now to create a system where everybody wins. We have the chance, we have the opportunity. When I say now, I mean somewhere between 100 years ago and 100 or 200 years from now. But in the grand scheme of things, that's essentially now. So yeah, this will wrap up my series. Because I need to take some time to take care of myself so I can enjoy some of the beauty that is here now. Not just focus on the problems of the world, but the problems of myself. To focus on one of the places where the enemy is, which is in me. It took a long time for me to realize I am my own worst enemy. But that part of me that is the enemy inside of me is connected to the enemy out there. Which is, I read in that book that I showed the picture of yesterday, the illustrated book of the Bhagavad Gita, in the Garden of Eden, how one of the ways to worship God is to be a good parent to God. God does need our help. The God in time needs our help. Because the God in time is the God that allows free will. And that's a gift. And we show appreciation for that gift by choosing to do the right thing. And that's what gives power to God to help us as pieces of God. left-hand path, I guess. The road less traveled. Now this is the road I travel up and down every day for 10 years. 12 years, however many years, but I'm doing something I've never done before on that road. So sometimes the road less traveled is on the same road. Yogi Berra. When you see a fork in the road, take it. The flood's coming, but it can be a flood. It can be a flood of tears, and it can be a flood of tears and joy, and it can be a flood of soothing, fresh water. Right? The last flood was a salt water, was a salt brine, was a lactic ferment. What if the next flood is the fresh water? Is the realization of the Nawapa project, which is supposedly one of the reasons why JFK was killed. To create public works that are multifaceted, that solve real problems, creating like a Hamiltonian credit system. We didn't have any money when we built the Capitol. What is money? Show me the money! We have the ability to do so much and to learn to love. We have the ability to learn how to feed each other. And I don't know how to do it, but part of me knows. And I see the story. And I hope you see it too.